This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, hi guys. So let's continue our discussion. So let's say that yesterday we created these data frames. Now I would like to write this data frame to some location. So this is where we can use the different write modes that we have in Spark. So you can just say Spark write modes. Just click on the first link. Okay, I think this is not the one. Yeah, so you can see this. Okay, I think this is not the one that I'm looking for. So Spark, let's say Spark documentation. Click on the first link, API docs, Python. So basically, I'm telling you a way how to navigate through the documentation because it's important to understand how to how to navigate through the official documentation also. Here you can actually search for data frame writer. Open any one of it. Let's say data frame writer.csv. Scroll down. Yeah, now have a look here. This is what I was actually talking about. So you can see that these are the different ways using which you can actually write your data or save your data. So from previous session, we already have this data frame called as final df, which was nothing but the student data, right? So let's try to rerun these cells once again. So I'm trying to rerun this cell so that I can show you how to actually write the same data to some location. So first let's talk about the default write mode. So let me just say %md. So default write mode. So suppose if I wanted to write this data and then I have to use data frame name dot write. So what are you going to get if you say data frame name dot write? You're going to get a data frame writer. So this is also one of the interview questions. So how do you get the data frame writer? By using data frame name dot write, or they may ask you what will you get out if you say data frame name dot write? You're going to get data frame writer. So this is what you're going to use to write the data from your data frame. So to write the data by using this, you have these different modes. So the default mode is called as error. I'll show you what exactly I'm talking about. But for now, let's focus on writing this data to somewhere. So let's say I can just say the data frame name dot write dot format. You can write the data in any format. Let's say I would like to write the data in JSON format dot save. Then here you have to mention the path where you would like to write the data into. Let us say that I wanted to write the data into this path. File store tables December 2022 data. I'll copy that path. I'll paste it here. Then I can say final student data. Run this code. So now the job is successful. What you can do is you can actually copy this path. Copy this path. Then you can just say percentage fs space ls. So that will get you data whatever is stored in that particular location. So now you can have a look here. So whenever you write your data frame, we will always have an empty file called as underscore success. So this is an empty file. This will just represent whether your write operation is successful or not. And apart from that, you can see this .json file. This is what we are actually looking for. this is where my actual data is written. So copy that path. Then you can actually go ahead and check the contents of that path. So you can just say percentage fs space head and then give that path. Now have a look here. So this is how the data is written in the JSON format. Right? Now what will happen if I try to rerun this cell again? So I'll just copy this and I'll paste it here. So what will happen? Let's find out. So you can see that it's going to fail, saying the path already exists. And in fact, that is the default behavior. So if you already have the data available in the given path, and if you're trying to write the same data again, then you're going to see this error saying throw an exception if data already exists. So let's do one thing. Let's mention this mode explicitly. So let's say I would like to mention the mode error. So let's say percentage MD write modes. So we'll talk about error or error if exists. So whenever you try to write the data, you can mention that. Copy this and then paste it here. So again, if you want, you can break it down into multiple lines also. So you can break it down something like this. Then here you can mention the mode. So the mode that we would like to mention is nothing but error. So let's mention the mode. It's a dot option. Mention the mode as error. Let's run it again. So you can see the default behavior is that. Whether you mention error or not, if you are trying to write it to the same location, if you already have the data there, then it will fail with this error. You can also change this to error if exists. Error if exists. Let's run it again. We can see that it's failing again. So that's the default behavior. So you can also try different options. Let's say I would like to silently ignore this operation if the data already exists. So let's try ignore operation or percentage MD write modes ignore. Let's copy this and paste it here. Mention the mode as ignore. Okay, 1 second. I think this is what I should try. Now you can see there are no errors. Sorry, so there is small syntax problem here. Even in the previous case also, I should be using something like this. So this is how you have to mention the mode. Now you can see here, this is not throwing me any error. Even though I have the data available in this path, it's not throwing any error because I'm giving the mode as ignore. That is, silently ignore this operation if the data already exists. So you can also try using append operation. Let's try using append. So let's try write modes. Try with append now. So just copy this and paste it. Just slightly replace the mode as append. There are no errors. But now interestingly, if you go and check here, you'll have one more file. Because we are mentioning the mode as append, it will create one more file with the content whatever you have in your data frame. Percentage fh space ls and then give that path. Now have a look here. We have second .json file created. Contents will be exactly same in this example, but in the real world, whatever data that is coming the next day could be appended. Right? If you want to check the contents, you can check the contents, copy it. The percentage fh space head, give that path. So this is how the data is, and if I pick up the next file also, you'll have the same content. Percentage fh space head, then give that path. Right? So that's how you can mention the mode as append mode. It will append the data to the existing data. You can also overwrite the data. It will overwrite the existing data. Let's try overwrite. Write modes. Let's say I would like to mention overwrite. So I'll just copy this and then paste it here. Just mention the mode as overwrite. That's all. So what will this do? This will overwrite the content. So we had two JSON files. Now if I go ahead and check the path, you will have only one because it will overwrite the content. So let's confirm the same. So now if you can go and check here, you can see that there is only one JSON file. The contents will be exactly same. But only thing that we are trying to do here is we are trying to overwrite the content. Again, these modes are very, very important, guys, because the reason is ultimately after you do all the processing of data in Spark, you have to write the data somewhere, right? And you have to mention one of these modes. So that's where understanding about all these modes is very, very important. So most of the cases will be using either append mode or overwrite mode. So these are the two options that we'll be using most of the times. So very, very rarely we'll use ignore and error, but most of the times we'll go with append or override option. And one more interesting thing is we can mention the header also when you write the data. So you can just say Control F, search for header. You can see you can also mention the header option also such that when you write the data, it will also show the headers or the column names for you. So let me show the same. So let me add a heading. Adding header when writing the data frame. So this is again important. Sometimes, let's say you're working with some business analyst team, they say that okay, I want the column names also so that I can see what data is for what column. So this is again very important option. So now let's do one thing. We have written the data in JSON format, right? We will write the data in CSV format now. So let's copy that code snippet and paste it. Let's say mode, let it be override for now. And let's say final student CSV data, because this is in CSV format. I would like to write the data, hence I'm changing the mode to be format as CSV, mode as override, and final name also final student CSV data. So let's write this data. So now if you can copy this path and check the contents there, percentage fs space ls, give that path. Now you can see that we have .csv file because we have mentioned the mode, we have mentioned the format as CSV. Now let's look at the contents, percentage fs space head, give that path. Because it is CSV and you should have the data also in CSV format. But suppose, let's say we just have only 3 rows. I have, let's say, 10,000 records, and this data might be used by data scientists or data analysts or business analysts. Their requirement is just the data is not enough for me. I also wanted to have the column names. Then you can mention the option header as true. Let's modify this code. Let's say option. So you can just mention header as true. So let's rerun the code again. So now the file name also changed. So I'll have to pick up this one because we have mentioned the overwrite operation. So it completely removed everything and then recreated it everything. So let me look at the contents now. If you go and check the contents, you should have the column names. Have a look at this is very important option. You can see the name, qualification, and here these are the column names, and you can get that by setting header as true even when you write the data frame also. Very important option. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the data frame reader. So let's go and search for data frame reader. On the top left corner, I'm searching for the same. You can click on any of the. Let's say I would like to click on data frame reader.csv. So today I would like to talk about the different read modes that we have in when you read the data. So so we have different modes here. You can see there is something called as mode, and this is what I would like to focus now. So there is an interesting data set that I would like to show now. It's basically the car related data. So let's go to C drive data folder here, and I have 4.json data. So this is a JSON data which is related to the car's information. So it just contains only 2 columns. Let me open the file by using Notepad++. So this is very simple data, just contains only 2 columns. If you can see, we have model name and we have model make ID. So these are the cars, created or implemented by Ford, and you can see respective model names. So this is actually a JSON data, and I can see that there are 2 corrupted records in this entire data. So what are those corrupted records? This is a corrupted record because the reason is you can see that there is a flavor bracket in the middle that is going to make this record as a corrupted record. Also, there is another corrupted record at line number 31. Right? You can see that there is another opening flavor bracket, so that's going to make this record as a corrupted record. So we have 2 corrupted records, and what is the total count of the records? Scroll to the bottom. So totally we have 147 records. Out of 147 records here, we have 2 corrupted records. So let's see how to read this data. So first step is I'm going to upload the data. So let's click on data, create table. So December 2022 underscore data, you can just directly upload the data here. So let's go to C drive, data folder. Let's say 4.json. So just copy this path, and on the left hand side, go to the recents, click on the top notebook, and then scroll to the bottom. So here I would like to add a new heading. Let's say now we will talk about the read modes. Read modes in Spark. So first we'll talk about the default one. What is a default read mode? First step is to preview the data. So %fs space head, and then give that file name. So this is the data that we have got. Now let's see how to create a data frame out of this. Ford underscore df equal to spark session dot read dot format is JSON, and say dot load, and then give that path. So you can break it down into multiple lines. So observe here, I'm not mentioning any mode. I'm directly reading it as it is, right? So display Ford underscore df. Guys, what's your observation? You can see that we have a new column called as underscore corrupt underscore record created. What does this contain? So this contain the corrupted record. So if you can see here at line number 17, this is a corrupted record, and because it is a corrupted record, and that corrupted record is part of this underscore corrupt underscore record. Also, we had another corrupted record at line number 31. Let's go there. You can see that here. So this is the default behavior whenever you are trying to deal with the data that you have the corrupted or malformed records. Also, you can see that it is showing all 147 rows. Right? If you want, you can scroll to the down also. It is showing all 147 records for me. Also, you can even get the count of the records. You can just say data frame name dot count. That will get you the count of the records. Right? So count is showing us 147. Now, so by default, this is the behavior. So we also have something called as permissive mode. That is nothing but the default read mode in Spark when you try to create a data frame. So let me show that practically. So here you can mention read modes, and the mode is nothing but the permissive mode. So this is the default read mode when you try to create a data frame in Spark. So you can just do one thing, just copy the same and then scroll down. Then here you can just mention dot mode permissive. That's all. So let's try running this. Okay, so here it's slightly different. You have to mention option, then mode. Should be fine now. Now here, interestingly, you can see again 147 rows. Again, you can see underscore corrupt underscore record. Again, if you go to line number 17, you can see the corrupted record here. Again, if you go to line number 31, you can see the corrupted record here. So this is the default behavior. As I told, if you don't mention anything when you create your data frame, so by default, it's going to consider the permissive mode, right? By default, it's a permissive mode. So one of the interview question, what is the default read mode that you have in Spark? The answer is permissive mode, right? It will show the corrupted record also, right? You can see there is no change in the count of the record. So count of the records is still the same, 147. If you want, you can figure it out again. Data frame name dot count. You can see 147. Now we have another mode called as drop malformed. As the name suggests, it's going to drop the corrupted records. So let's do that. So percentage MD read modes drop malformed. Drop malformed. So again, I'm going to take the same code snippet. I'm not going to change anything, just only one parameter I'm going to change. Paste it here. I'm just going to mention drop malformed. Drop malformed. Let's run it. So guys, you are not seeing the third column called as underscore correct underscore record. And interestingly, look here, it's showing 2 records less. Total 147 records were there. So now you can see the total count is showing as 145. If you want, you can double check by running count. Say dot count. You can figure out the total count of the records. It's showing as 145. So I'll show you why is it not showing those corrupted records. In fact, if you can go back here, so the corrupted record was available at 17, right? So this was my corrupted record, and before this corrupted record, what was the model name? C100, and after this corrupted record, what is the model name? C max energy. Let's go back there. So go and check the same now. So you can see C100 and C max energy. So it's not showing C max in between that. So basically Cmax is a corrupted record, hence that record has been dropped. It is directly showing C100 and Cmax energy. Now let's look at 31 also. So 31 you have the corrupted record and it is of Desert Excursion. Before this we have custom and after this you have E150. So let's scroll down. Again you can see here you have custom and then E150. You don't have Desert Excursion because it is a corrupted record. It has been dropped. So that is the behavior when you go with drop malformed. It's going to drop the corrupted or malformed records. Now there is a third mode called as fail fast. As the name suggests, if it is finding any corrupted records, it's going to fail immediately. So let's say the third read mode is nothing but fail fast. So these are the three read modes that we have got. Fail fast, as the name suggests, it's going to fail fast immediately. So during the data frame creation itself, it will fail. I don't even need to display the data frame. If there are any corrupted records, it will immediately fail during the creation itself. Now you can see here, it's saying malformed records are detected in the schema inference. Parse mode is fail fast. So now, guys, so these are the three important read modes that we have in Spark. You have permissive mode, drop malformed, and then fail fast. So permissive is the default mode, and I have shown it practically also. So that is a default read mode that we have. And one more interesting option that is supported is nothing but bad records path. So let me try using that. So I'm going with default one. I'm going with default. So let's try including that option called as bad records path. Bad records path. So we just have to say dot option say bad records path, and interestingly it's going to keep all the corrupted records over there. So let's say Ford corrupted records. So this will be the directory that could be created. Let's run this piece of code. So now observe here, even though I'm mentioning it as permissive mode, because by default it is permissive mode, it is basically not displaying underscore corrupt underscore record column, because the reason is all the corrupted records could go and settle here. Let's go and query this path. This is again very important, guys. So you have to understand all these scenarios. So you can see that you have a dedicated directory created. Let's go and query the same. %fs space ls and then give that path. So you can see that automatically it created one more directory called as bad underscore records. Let's copy this. %fs space ls and then give that path. Now again you can see there is one more file within that bad underscore records. Let's check the contents of this file. Because it is a file, hence I have to say %fs space head to check the contents of that file. So here you'll be able to understand exactly. So you can see the file that we're trying to read the data from is nothing but this file, and you can see the record which is causing the problem, right? Cmax, which is nothing but record number 17. Also you can figure out the reason, right? So the reason is JSON parser exception, unclosed flower bracket, right? So that's why it's very important, guys. So this is especially if you wanted to understand Why there are corrupted records, then you can use this option. But I believe this is supported only on Databricks, not on any other platform. Only on Databricks you can see this. But this is a very handy option where you can see exactly what exactly going wrong. Okay, any questions still here, guys? Anybody have any questions? Any questions so far? Okay, let's move on. So now let's talk about infer schema option. So when you try to create a data frame, you have something called a schema, right? So let's do one thing. Let's go and select a different file. Let's take departments. Let's look at the contents of this file. Okay, you have these fields. So you have employee ID, you have department name, you have client, and then you have onboarded date. So let's try to create a data frame by using this department's data. So let's upload the data first. So click on data on the left hand side, click on create table, December 2022 data, and then we'll try to upload the data. Department.csv. So copy this path, and then on the left hand side, click on recents, click on top notebook. So scroll to the bottom. So here I would like to check the contents, percentage FS space head, and then give that path. So this is the data. So let's create a data frame. Department df equal to arc session dot read dot format. Format is CSV dot load and give that path. So break this down into multiple lines. So because this contains the column names also, so hence I have to set option header as true. So let's do that. Dot option set the header as true. Let's run it again. Now you can actually display the data frame, display the data frame. So this is the data is looking pretty much good. Now the interesting thing which I would like to show here is nothing but the schema of this data frame. That is, what are the different columns, what are the different data types. You can see employee ID is showing a string, department name is showing a string, client is showing a string, and onboard date is also showing a string. So guys, observe here, employee ID should be an integer type, right? And onboard date should be of date type, but that's not is happening here. By default, Spark will consider everything as a string. Now to fix this issue, so this is where I'm going to use something called as infer schema. But before that, I want you to focus on this. So see here, how many jobs is it creating? It is creating only one job. I'm not doing anything. But now if I include infer schema, it will create one more job here, right? So observe here carefully. So I'm going to include option set infer schema as true. Let's run it again. Let's look at the content, whether it is creating the data correctly or not. You can see that employee ID is showing as integer now. Department name is showing a string, client is showing a string. I was expecting onboarded date to be of date type, but it is considering timestamp type. So you can see here, infer schema is trying to make an intelligent guess about the data types based on the data. So it guessed correctly for all the columns except onboarded date, right? So, but there is one problem with infer schema. What is the problem? The problem with infer schema is you can see that now it is showing us two jobs, right? Because I have included infer schema as true, it's going to create an extra job for you and it's going to slow down your Spark job because it will have to make an intelligent guess about the column data types. It will read a portion of your data before making that conclusion or before making the decision. Hence, using infer schema in the projects is not suggested. because of two reasons. One is it's going to create an extra job which will slow down your Spark job during the read time, and also it won't make an intelligent guess for all the columns. Example, onboarded date. It should be of date type, but it's still considering it as timestamp type. Because of these two reasons, we won't preferably go with infer schema in the real-time projects. So even in the interviews, don't say that you are using infer schema in your project, because that is never used in any project, because it will slow down your Spark job performance. Hence, instead of using infer schema, we go with other approaches where we create our own schema called as custom schema or user defined schema. But remember, infer schema is never used because it will slow down the Spark job and it will not make an intelligent guess about all the columns. Now let's say how to solve this problem. We will solve this problem by using creating a custom schema or user defined schema. So let's say creating the custom schema by using struct type. So this is again very important in the real-time projects. Most likely will be following this approach of creating the custom schema. So again, there are two ways of creating the custom schema. The first and important one is struct type approach. So here you have to understand about two things. So struct type actually represents the row, and we have something called a struct field, which actually represents the fields or the columns in your data. So let's say I would like to first uh, create department custom schema equal to, as I told, it's of struct type, and this struct type takes a list. And how do you represent a list in Python? By using square brackets. It's a list of struct fields. So I'm going to mention list of struct fields here, and this struct field takes two things as input. First one is nothing but the column name. So the column name is nothing but, I'm going to mention all the column names here. The second parameter is nothing but the data type. So this is of integer type. So employee ID is of integer type, hence I'm going to mention the same. So I would like to mention for all the remaining columns also. So the second column is department name. So department name is of string type. And the third column is client. Client is again string type. And then the fourth one is onboarded date, and this should be of date type. So let's run this. If you run this, it will fail because we have to import all this, only then it will work. So let's try importing all this. So from PySpark.sql types import, you have to import everything. So you have to import struct type, and you have to import struct field, and you have to import integer type, and you have to import string type, and then you have to import date type. Basically, whatever you're using here to create the custom schema, you have to import everything. Now there are no errors. Let's look at the type of this custom schema name. Now we have the struct type. This is what is required. So now let's go ahead and rerun the same data frame once again by mentioning the custom schema. So it's very simple. Once you have the custom schema created, to add this to the data frame, it's very simple. You just have to remove the infer schema option. Then you just have to say schema, then pass on the custom schema here. That's it. Right now you can actually look at the data as well. Display. then the data frame name. So data is looking good. Also, let's look at the schema, print schema. We can see the data is looking pretty much fine. So employee ID is integer, department name is string, and client is string. On onboarded date is also showing us date, right? So this is one way of creating the custom schema by using struct type. There is also a second way called as DDL string. So now let me show how to create a custom schema by using DDL string approach. So creating custom schema, by using DDL string. So for this, I'm going to use a different data. So let's say I would like to use the orders data that we have. So now have a look here. We have order ID, order date, order customer ID, and then order status. So these are the fields that we have got. By using this, I would like to create a data frame. So let's do that. So I'll go and upload the data, create table, and then you can mention your path, December 2022 underscore data. Let's say orders underscore CSV. Let's say underscore latest. So here I would like to upload my data. So go to the retail DB and go to the orders, select that file. So it's uploading the data. Let's wait for 2 minutes. So the data has been uploaded. Now let's copy this path. So on the left hand side, click on recents, click on the top notebook. So scroll to the bottom. Then here you can say percentage fs space head and then give that path. So this is the data that we have got. Now what you can do is you can actually go ahead and try to create the custom schema. Let's say orders custom schema equal to. So you have to use, as I mentioned, it is a DDL string, hence I'm using double quotes here, and then I'm trying to mention all the columns. So order ID, which is of integer type, on order date, which could be of date type, on order customer ID, which could be of integer type, and then we have the fourth column order status, which is of string type. Then I can go ahead and then create my data frame. Orders underscore df equal to spark session dot read dot format is CSV, and then say dot load and paste that path. And here you have to mention the schema and mention the custom schema. So which is nothing but orders custom schema. Let's run it. So let's display the data frame. So the data is looking good. How about the schema? Dot print schema. Now you can see the schema is also looking good. You can see order ID showing as integer, order date is showing as date. Everything is perfect. Also, moreover, as I told, we are using custom schema. And how many jobs are you seeing here when you try to create your data frame? You're just seeing only one data frame, one job, right? So that's the beauty of it. So basically, you can speed up your Spark jobs if you go with the custom schema. But if you go with the inverse schema approach, then it will slow down your Spark job. Hence, we don't suggest to go with inverse schema option. Now let's talk about join operation in Spark. So how to join two data frames? Joining two data frames. So we have this department data frame already, right? So display department data frame. So now I would like to basically create one more data frame. Let me show the employee data frame, employee data. So this is the employee data that I've got. So I'm going to create a data frame out of this. So first let's upload the data. Click on data, create table, and here you can see December 2022 underscore data, employee underscore CSV, let's say underscore latest. So here you can upload your file employee.csv. Just copy this path, click on recents, click on the top notebook, scroll to the bottom. So first let's look at the content. Percentage FS space head, and then give that path. So now you can see that this is how the data is looking like. Now I would like to go ahead and try to create a data frame by using this employee data frame. Employee df equal to spark session dot read dot format is CSV, and then say dot, because we have the header also, I'm going to mention option header as true, and then you can mention dot load, then give that path. So break it down into multiple lines. So now display the data frame. So have a look here. If you can see something, there are two common columns between both. If you can look at your department data, you have a column called as employee ID. And if you look at your employee data, you have a column called as ID column. So I'm going to join these two data frames based on that. So let's say joined df equal to department underscore df dot join employee df. So here you have to mention based on which columns we are trying to perform the join operation. So empdf.id double equal to department df dot the employee ID column that we have got in the departments. So let's go and pick up the same. So make sure you are using the correct column names. Copy this, scroll down, and then paste it here. So now okay, there is something wrong. See here, I'm using a wrong column name. It should be ID with caps. Should work fine. Now let's display the data frame. So joined df. Now have a look here. We have the data and we can see that these two are joined based upon employee ID column and ID column. And this is how the data will look like. Now if you can see here, the data in employee ID column and data in ID column, they are exactly same. So we don't need to have any duplicate data in our data. So we can actually drop it. So let's say I wanted to keep employee ID column and I would like to drop ID column. So that's where we can drop the columns. So dropping the columns. Suppose I would like to drop only the ID column. Then I can just say joined underscore df dot drop and mention that column name. And in fact, you can even directly apply display here also. So this will drop ID column and rest of the columns will be as it is. You can see that remaining columns are as it is. And suppose let's say I would like to drop the multiple columns. Let's say I would like to drop department name and client on onboarded date. So you can do one more thing. If you say display joined df, interestingly you are still seeing ID column, because remember data frames are also immutable similar to RDDs. If you try to modify it, it won't be modified. The original data frame is still there, but it created a new data frame for me, right? So I hope you're getting the point here. So what I can do is I can say, let's say final df equal to joined df dot. I would like to drop multiple columns, hence I can mention all the column names here. I can mention, let's say department name is a column. I can mention that, and then we have client column, and then we have onboarded date, right? So now we are getting a data frame, and that data frame will not have these three columns, right? So this is very, very important, guys. So make sure that you understand this concept very, very clearly. And if I'm the interviewer, I'll ask one more question. What will happen to join data frame? Will there be any changes? The answer is no. Your data frame will remain as it is same. It's exactly the same, right? Because data frames are also immutable similar to RDDs. If you try to change that, it will not change. It will create a new data frame for you, right? I think this is enough for today, guys. So these are the operations that we can do on data frames. Tomorrow also we'll have a session, as I told, and Sunday also we have a session. So please be prepared to join. If you miss it, you will get the recording. Okay. Tomorrow we will focus on data frame functions, and day after tomorrow we'll talk about Spark SQL. So that's the agenda. Okay, so I'll share this notebook with you so you can refer to this. So let's catch up tomorrow. See you then. Bye.
Hey, Vamshi?
Hey, yeah, Lakshmi, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I just have a question. Like today's session, I felt like it was too much confusing. But in general, when we are working on in real time, if I don't remember, like I know how to do that, but I don't remember. Will there be any help where I can, get the format or something like that?
Yes, yes, of course. So you don't worry. So basically, you can refer to the documentation, right? So I think I've already shown this, right? I don't know if I have it opened or not. Yeah, so you can actually refer to the documentation. Suppose if you wanted to know about, let's say, Spark read modes, right? You
Right.
don't know what the read modes are, so you can definitely get some help. So there is no harm in googling, right? Because it's tough for anybody to remember everything.
Yes,
you,
that's
you
what.
can see that. Yeah, so it's absolutely fine. So nobody knows, nobody remembers everything, and that is absolutely fine. You can see here we have the different read modes. So refer to the documentation. So no harm in googling. So feel free to google.
Yeah, and actually, I've observed like in whatever format we are doing, always we are creating a data frame. There are so many ways of creating this data frame. How would we know like okay, this is what we have to use?
See, most likely this is the approach that we are going to take on.
The
So
format of which?
the struct type.
Oh, struct type. Yes. Okay. Today we have
See,
learned.
that is the important one. So rest of them you should know because sometimes some interviewers may ask all that, right? So and tomorrow I'll show another way of creating a data frame by using a list.
Okay.
So yeah, but that we rarely use in the industry. Mostly in the projects, we'll go with struct type. That is the preferred approach.
And is JSON a default script language or it is like own like
It is a it is a file format. It is one of the way you represent your data, where you can have your field names and your actual data. But if it
is
is CSV, it won't be having the column names, right? It just contains only the data.
okay? So do we have to know JSON or if it is it okay like if we can understand what it is? Because like the array or the object, as far as that I can understand, but writing the JSON is like
You don't need to write anything. Just can, even if the data is CSV, you can convert and create a JSON file out of it in
okay.
Spark. It's as
Yes. Yes.
simple as that. You create a data frame. Let's say your data is in CSV format. You
Mhm.
create a data frame out of that by using CSV. And when you write the data, you mention it as JSON. That's it. Spark will automatically take care. You
Yes.
don't
Okay.
need to learn anything in JSON.
Okay. Got it. Thank you so much, Vamsi.
Yeah. Sure. Let's catch up tomorrow then. See you.
Sure.
Bye.